Let's talk about Singapore. I have to admit, I've been to quite a few places on Earth, but out of all these places, I have to say that Singapore truly is one of those places that really blew my mind. I've never been into a country where somehow everything was so publicly well organized, with great infrastructure, lots of public goods, good safety, seemingly good education, and a robust booming economy. With all these traits, I was really starting to thinking, could this be the place where I could maybe one day settle? I wish I could say that this is probably one of the best places to live on Earth, but sadly there was just one major issue that my European mind just couldn't look over. And I think this is one of the main problems that could put off someone from actually staying in Singapore. So let me show you guys how Singapore looked like through my eyes, and I'll let you guys decide. Is Singapore one of the best places to live? Or is that one problem so big that it would make happy life almost impossible in this country? Alright, beautiful people, I just arrived to Singapore. My room is actually pretty big. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty spacious. It's like pretty decent. I paid a lot of money for this. Look at this. It's a very spacious shower, bathroom. There's a longer waited toilet session I have to go to, so I'll talk to you guys later. While wait for my past self to finish his private matters on the toilet, let me show you guys some of the great first impressions that Singapore gave me when I first arrived. First of all, I was kind of reminded by the government to not fall for any kind of credit for sex scams. I never even knew that was a thing, but we live and learn. But I was glad to see that the government has certain measures to try to protect poorer people falling for these different kind of financial scams. Then I went to get some pan mee and teh tarik to fix my hangover. The food really soothed my soul, I can't lie. And just walking around the city, I couldn't believe my eyes. Everything was so modern, clean, and just pretty. The entire city really looked super pristine. Alright, so I just finished my toilet session. I have a bit more focus now to talk about things. So far, I mean, what I've realized is that Singapore has a really good public transport system. I took the MRT for maybe like 40 something minutes, and I only paid like 0.1 Singaporean dollars. So cheap, clean, reliable, quite modern, and I was able to use my own MasterCard as well, so I didn't need to like buy any cards here or any kind of like top up. What was also pretty interesting to me is that certain things are prohibited to be done. Let's say even eating or drinking, which I kind of usually do in like Europe, unlike the public transport system. But here, it literally says how much money they will fine you. A very specific numbers to each kind of like offense that you would do. They're using monetary punishment as a huge deterrent, and not just in the fact that you expect that there's going to be some kind of a monetary backlash. It's very clearly stated in a very exact number amount. Also, it turns out tap water is drinkable here, or at least that's what the receptionist told me. I don't know. Everything looks really safe. I could have just left my luggage and everything at the table where I was eating. I went to bring my food, or like just go bring back the trays. Nobody will steal. Nobody will even touch it. You know. Yesterday I went to Benong again in KL just to have a farewell party. Slept like 2 hours and then headed straight to the bus stop. Still pretty much hungover. And hopefully tonight I'm going out in Singapore as well with the guys that I met in Korea back in Seoul. So I got myself ready by taking a hot bath, and then I was ready to go. Let's head out. Whoa. I'm gonna meet my boy who I met in Korea, and we're gonna go out for drinks. And then apparently there's like a hip hop type of party where many locals go, so not like all the foreigners and the touristy things. So probably gonna have some local experience. Gotta prepare my liver for some extra amounts of alcohol once again. While I was walking in the city, some of the first signs of the problem that might put off foreigners from living in Singapore showed up. There's a puking fun in this country. The problem is that Singapore is very ordered, structured, and planned out. And this is really reflected in the puking fine or even just designated areas for smoking, which really closes out any possibilities for spontaneous fun. The public benefits of these measures, or even just defining rules in the metros, are very clear. These allow Singapore to keep its city clean, publicly safe, and to avoid any kind of disorder. I fully understood how the success of Singapore kind of stems from these type of rules. But while these are fully understandable, I think without going into any further debate in terms of what's better between order and chaos, as a foreigner, these rules might be very restraining compared to what they experience back at home. And it even might put limits onto some people's happiness and fulfillment in life. How are we feeling about the night?
Too good.
What about you?
I hope you had fun.
This guy a legend, this guy a beast, man. I'm just walking back right now from this hip-hop rap R&B block party type of thing. It was pretty cool, I can't lie. Oh my days, that is a rap. What the that shit was massive. That was unexpected. Anyways, it started off a little bit dead, but later on, somehow, this shit turned up. 70% of the group at the community was able to dance, and they danced really, really well. It was really wholesome, you know. Had this like big circle, I was like dancing, vibing. Oh, I just couldn't believe my eyes. Anyone being dragged in, like pulled on the craziest moves ever. Some of these lot, man, they were like doing like proper break dancing. I wish I could learn from these guys. Alcohol is not cheap at all. Drinks, we were able to drink outside in the public, but it's just more about like you cannot really make a scene, so you cannot be too drunk on the streets.
Although I enjoyed the party a lot, I still have to say that compared to all the other places I've been to in Asia, the party still felt very, very tamed. And this again really ties into the restrained nature of how Singapore is in general. So probably if you're young and just want to go wild, go crazy, Singapore is probably not the best place to be. The next day I headed out to Fort Canning Park to learn about Singapore's colonial history.
Well, I arrived to Fort Canning Park, and this is Raffles Garden. We're basically going through regions that has deep colonial history and also history from the Second World War. Because basically this area was a very important British military stronghold. Damn, my guy's on the fucking tree. Jesus, okay. I don't know, maybe he's possessed. Oh, the guy is a woman, I'm sorry. Okay, so it turns out he was the founder of modern Singapore. I assume he was one of the main people from Britain who established the colony here in Singapore. Heading into the woods. This is a protected place. They will fucking literally shoot you, bro. Wish me luck. Knowing how dumb I am, I might be even get shot by the Singaporean military. I found the bunker, which is basically just this. It's a small little bunker. And there's this big ass gate as well, which I don't know what's the purpose of this, but let's just see. Oh, so it was British built fort, and this was the entrance to the fort, and this was called Fort Canning. This was built to protect Singapore from sea-borne attacks, and it also provided refuge to Singapore's European population, obviously, in the event of local unrest. So it was very much colonial purpose. I arrived to the Sang Nila Utama Garden as well, which is named after the first king of Singapore, apparently the legendary founder of ancient Singapore, who built his basically the palace that was located on this hill with the royal garden. I don't know what's going on there. What is this party on there? Obviously, I arrived to the tree tunnel and it's filled with tourists. So, well, I'm not gonna get a good pic, I feel. The tree is actually insane.
Fort Canning was really one of the few places in Singapore where I didn't feel the planned nature of the city, because majority of the sites that I visited in Singapore were mostly artificially created with a given purpose.
Here, when you travel around, I don't think you can bump into just small details or small nuances in the city in a natural way. It's very hard to I think have this sense of surprise or just wow-ness to seeing certain things.
This is really exemplified by Arab Street and the area around it. This quarter of the city was really beautiful, very vibey, filled with people, lots of food places and things to buy. But the greatest thing here was the street art, which I have to say was really amazing to look at. But putting it into context, the only reason why this street art can exist is because this is one of the few places in Singapore where you can actually have street art being shown. So this again shows how planned Singapore is, and that every small detail in the city has a specific purpose, even street art.
In Singapore, the idea of a spectacle is much more prevalent. And what I mean on the spectacle is more like when there are certain things being built, very glamorous or very touristy, it is made with a purpose. Any single thing that I think that is a tourist site or worth seeing in Singapore as a tourist is much more of a spectacle. It is something purposefully built through some kind of, central planning or just urban planning that wants you as a kind of a consumer to see it. A lot of areas here in Singapore, especially if you just walk down the streets, many things are for the eyes to see.
And this focus of Singaporean urban planning on creating spectacles not only applies to tourist sites, but it can also be seen on residential buildings. What you have to know about Singapore's property markets is that the government has a great control over the property markets. That's why it makes it possible to have affordable housing. And this is one of the reasons why there's such a high rate of home ownership within Singapore. However, for some people in the low income bracket, there are possibilities for living in rental units. And one of my friends brought me around in one of those areas where there was predominantly rental units. And it was interesting how controlled the environment is. There was a higher rate of surveillance and policing just because there's higher crime rates as well. Just as in any living quarter within Singapore, many things were localized here as well. For example, schools, shops were all located in one single residential area. And related back to the idea of the spectacle, many of these rental units were really well maintained from the outside. What I wanted to just highlight here is the fact how important it is for Singapore to even make these type of more deprived areas much prettier than they are, to hide away certain problems away from public scrutiny. This focus on spectacles is not necessarily a bad thing. It is one of the reasons why we have so amazing landmarks such as the Marina Bay Sands.
There it is, the big iconic building of Singapore.
Or the gardens by the bay. It really impressed me and showed me that what type of architectural capabilities do humans have.
And even yesterday, I went around the night festival in Singapore. That is Badong who threw a giant rock in Singaporean folklore. I don't know why, but he did.
Well, I'm stuck on this boring island.
I did bump into like random like events, right, happening. Random AI art kind of exhibition in the National Design Center. So those are super, super cool. And obviously it was a surprise in the sense that I bumped into them. But obviously they were purposefully put there, part of as the night festival. And the night festival, once again, was about Singaporean trade and Singaporean like commerce activity. And it's again, once again, for you to see a little bit of Singapore that the country wants to show you. And as I said, it's not a bad thing. In fact, if you're a local, if you live here, I think it's quite a very wholesome activity. We have a horse as well. So this is a church that got turned into restaurants and bars. Since there are so many conscious policy decisions around like urban planning and also just like how the city should look like, what type of guidelines there should be for people to live in this city.
It allows for the provision of facilities and services that are good for the collective, like placing publicly accessible libraries in almost all malls, and also creating solutions that are environmentally friendly.
Singapore has quite a lot of green spaces. I really love the fact that it's very well merged with the urban areas. I think makes the city cooler as well. I think it's a very conscious policy plan to make this concrete to not observe too much heat and then have these plants around for environmental reasons. Plus, as I know that there's also a conscious policy decision that if you build a new building in Singapore, in the central areas, you have to replace the amount of hectares of green space that you use for the building. For example, on the rooftop or like on certain terraces of that newly built building, you need to have the same amount of hectares that are being destroyed by the construction of that area. It's quite cool in a way how it's like consciously decided upon. I'm gonna walk towards Clark Quay. I'm gonna look around the Singapore River. Come along. Damn. Shit just ate a fish. What the f?
I really don't know what is up with these sitting on the street parties, but after fighting through the crowd, I went to get some food the next day before my flight.
Heading out for some kaya toast at Ya Kun. People were telling me that that's probably the best option for breakfast. Well, he made it back to Singapore. Let's go. Having some good shit. Milo dinosaur. Finally got it. Yay. We have a Chinese temple, but we have the Hindu temple as well.
Just before my flight, obviously I could not miss to see the jewel. Honestly, that was one of the most impressive man-made stuff that I ever seen in my life. Who in their fucking right mind even thought about the idea of building an artificial waterfall with a jungle in a mall? But shit was mesmerizing, mate. Even now as I look back onto my time in Singapore, I still don't really know if this city would be one of the most ideal places for me to live, since on the one hand, it's almost perfect, but on the other hand, it's a bit too perfect and too restraining. So, I want you guys to decide, should I live there in the future? Put it down in the comments. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in Thailand.